Hi guys, it is just a blah, ugly, gray, depressing winter day here in the drought-plagued, flood-ravaged wasteland of South Austin, Texas. Is there something going on today? There just seems to be an added level of I don't know what, depression, for lack of a better word. I don't know what that's all about. It's just this pall of I don't know. It's just something weird in the air today. I don't know what it is, but anyway, we have made it to Wednesday, December 25th, 2013. It's just another day in my depressed collapsitarian life. And I'm up here on this rock today, like I am every Wednesday, bringing you my climate change meltdown roundup, where I go on the pages of the mainstream media, in this case Yahoo News, to bring you more evidence from the mainstream media that this planet is heading directly into a lake of burning fire. And I got a lot to cover today. Several excellent stories. I'm putting the links to all of these stories in here, as I do every week. So for the 10 or 12 people on the planet, I really encourage you to go on these links and read these full stories. So I better dive right into it. We can dispense with story number one real quick. I have no idea who TGD is. No idea. The T is for technology. Claim: solar activity not a key cause of climate change. Climate change has not been strongly influenced by variations in heat from the sun, a new scientific study shows. One more scientific study to be completely ignored by the Alex Jones Kool-Aid drinking crowd. We'll pay zero attention to the newest science showing virtually no connection between what is going on this planet and what's going on the sun. The new findings overturn a widely held scientific view from these climate change deniers that lengthy periods of warm and cold weather in the past might have been caused by periodic fluctuations in solar activity. New research examining the causes of climate change in the Northern Hemisphere over the past 1,000 years has shown that until the year 1800, the key driver of periodic changes in climate change was volcanic eruptions. These tend to prevent sunlight reaching the Earth, causing cooler weather. But since 1900, greenhouse gases, meaning man-made greenhouse gases, have been the primary cause of climate change. Moving along from there, let's go over there to my buddies at The Guardian. I like these guys over there from England. So this is mostly talking about England, but what's true for England is true here in the U.S. Energy dominated headlines in 2013, but climate change was almost invisible. The absence of a climate change narrative from public figures means the issue has fallen off the radar for many people. Will business and politicians step up in 2014? You know the answer to the question already. So do the editors of The Guardian know goddamn well what the answer to that question is. Businesses and politicians get serious about climate change. Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to read a little bit this and put the link onto it because I got a lot more to get to. In 2013, energy was rarely far from the headlines. From again, this is talking about England, but you better believe this is true for the U.S. From the Treasury's enthusiasm for a new dash for gas-based fracking underground shale rock to the announcement in England of a new nuclear power plant, policymakers' minds were focused on keeping the lights on as Britain's creaking energy infrastructure comes up for renewal. And so for the rest of us, it is relentless price hikes and energy bills that stick in our minds. As energy companies' profits soared and the specter of fuel poverty raised its ugly head again. But if energy was ubiquitous in 2013, climate change was virtually invisible. I'm talking about the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change issued its fifth assessment report detailing in ever more gory detail the risks of unchecked climate change. And save for the brief ripple of news interest and commentary, the newest report was ignored. Yep. Rising energy bills should have placed the increasing cost and carbon impacts of finite fossil fuel resources at the heart of the debate about energy, but instead, green charges were axed from energy bills in a short-sighted strategy to deflect public anger. Even protests against fracking over there in England focus on the risk of contaminating groundwater, which is important, rather than the much greater climate risk of burning more gas. Climate change has been conspicuous by its absence, and for all of our sakes, this has got to change. Oh yeah, it's going to change over there in England about as much as it's going to change right here in the U.S. Okay, so from The Guardian, what is the New York Times business page having to do with climate change this week? Okay. From the New York Times business page, I don't know when this was, maybe yesterday, rethinking how to split the costs of carbon. And this is an excellent article. So what it's looking at in this article, which again I'm going to put the link to and you need to read, is all of this controversy, which I've touched on, about how these different nations, the rich nations, the poor nations, the nations in between, how they divide up the blame for who's to bless and who is to blame about the ramping up of CO2 gases climate-wide. And as China, as I mentioned, I believe last week, China is saying, you do realize, American consumers, that 40% of the climate of the greenhouse gases we emit in China is to make shit for you guys to use. And this is what this article, this excellent article, is doing, is diving in, investigating this, about how consumers, how our overconsumption, particularly here in the U.S., is so often left out of these analyses, about these greenhouse gas emissions analyses. that while we're trying to figure out who is to bless and who's to blame, that so many of these models conveniently ignore the greenhouse gases being emitted by shit such as this laptop computer in my lap. And if you factor in our American consumer and lifestyle choices into the equation, you will see that China is probably underestimating if they're claiming the 40%. So anyway, you can't argue with this. It is probably a safe bet that very few Americans unwrapping their brand new iPhone left under their Christmas tree are thinking about its impact on the global climate. No shit, very few, zero people are thinking that. So anyway, how much does one iPhone, according to this analysis, looking at one iPhone should be expected to emit 154 pounds. 154 pounds of greenhouse gases over its lifetime. And I don't know, when they're saying its lifetime, if that includes its death time as well. So the good news about all this is that under the standard accounting of carbon emissions bandied about at climate talks, it is not mostly Americans' fault. About 3/4 of the carbon dioxide is considered the responsibility of other people. I guess he's talking about 3/4 of this 154 pounds or whatever, just using this as one example. So American consumers conveniently point to the fact that the 3/4 of the CO2 is considered the responsibility of other people in places like China, Taiwan, South Korea, and Mongolia, where the iPhone and its parts were made. But the bad news is not just that the effort to curb global warming is as stuck as ever, but that whether we like it or not, we are all in this together. As all of these, so much of these absolute horseshit climate talks are this finger pointing mainly between China and the U.S. It's your fault. No, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. It doesn't make a goddamn bit of difference. Well, obviously it makes some difference, but while all of this blame game going on in these horseshit climate talks, the planet is going directly into a burning lake of fire, and it's right here on the business page of the New York Times for anybody who does not understand this. Talking about globalization, the New World Order, the global corporatocracy. Globalization, which in the process of exporting production and jobs from rich to poor countries, also has exported the carbon dioxide emitted to make those products consumed by the rich countries. It all adds another complex twist to allocating responsibility for the carbon in the air. The disquieting question is this: are emissions the responsibility of the countries that made them, or for the countries for whom the products were made? And so as we continue to do all this finger pointing and playing the blame game, the planet is going Straight into a burning lake of fire. So, excellent story from the New York Times. Congratulations, New York Times. Okay. From there, I've already talked about this story on my rant 2 days ago I just talked about the business pages of the New York Times. This was in my economic meltdown. This, again, another story from the business pages. Anybody who doesn't understand the complete connection between the economy and climate change. This one is from Associated Press, and I'm going to touch on it again here and put the link in for any of you who didn't hear this on Monday, and then I will move ahead to 3 more stories. To clean up coal, Obama pushes more oil production. Okay, and I'm just going to read the beginning of this and sum it up for you. America's newest, most expensive coal-fired power plant is hailed as one of the cleanest on the planet, thanks to government-backed, meaning they're getting taxpayer subsidies. Thanks to taxpayer subsidies is another way of saying government-backed technology that removes carbon dioxide and keeps it out of the atmosphere. But once the carbon dioxide is stripped away, it will be used to do something that is not so green at all. It will extract oil. And for anyone failing to understand how this game is fixed, and how the fossil fuel companies in cahoots with Barack Obama and every other politician on this planet that they have in their pocket. So this story connects so many dots. And AP does a pretty good job of connecting them in here. So the upshot to this is this. So you might have heard about one of these techno-utopian solutions to save the planet, about sucking all these various techno-utopian schemes for sucking the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and never letting it get there. So this is this clean coal technology. You might have heard about this horseshit. So what they're doing in these probably $1 trillion, however expensive these damn coal-fired power plants are, this newest model, they keep a lot of the CO2 from going up in the air. But what do they do with the CO2 that they keep from going up in the air? They got to store it somewhere. Well, there's nowhere to store this shit. So guess who is offered to buy the CO2 from the coal-powered plants? It is nobody less than Big Oil. They're going in there, taking the carbon dioxide and blowing it down these expired oil wells. They're stuffing this carbon dioxide down in there, which is kind of a close cousin of fracking. This is not exactly fracking. The hole is already there, and it's got this oil down at the bottom that the oil wells can't reach, so they're using the carbon dioxide from the coal-powered plants to produce more oil to burn. And one of these environmental groups, that might have been Greenpeace, I don't remember, has done one analysis, and they came up with that the goddamn carbon dioxide, that was saved from going up in the air is actually being used to produce 4 times the greenhouse gas emissions that ever would have been produced if they had just let the shit go on up there into the air in the first place. And if this is not all sick and twisted enough, the final punchline to this sick joke is that these these big fossil fuel companies are using U.S. taxpayer supported subsidies that are supposed to be going to green energy. Do you get it, guys? What is going on? This story, you know, it's all right here. The absolute joke, the joke of all of this, which brings me to probably the best story of the day. If you read anyone's story, it is this one from the Atlantic Wire, which I guess is an offshoot of Atlantic Magazine. One a spot-on story here in the mainstream media. The only way to stop climate change now may be revolution. There's no maybe about it. Of course, I don't think there is any way to stop climate change. The self-reinforcing loops are in. The genie is out of the bottle. We are all toast. But if there's one thin hope, it is nothing short of a revolution. Now, of course, guys, what this article comes pretty close to saying, but it does not write up. You understand the only way to stop the rise is to immediately cease and desist today the burning of fossil fuels. But the trap of this that we have gotten in, for anyone who does not understand this, if we do not immediately cease and desist the burning of fossil fuels, this planet is going directly into a burning lake of fire and will kill us all. But if we were to stop burning fossil fuels today, instead of us all being dead in 50 years from now, Guy McPherson would say 17 years from now, instead of us all being dead in 50 years from now, we would all be dead in 6 months. Because, well, at least 6 billion of us, this planet without fossil fuels would support a population of 1 billion people, as it should. So if we were to get off fossil fuels, 6 billion of us would be dead in 6 months, including yours truly. But anyway, I'm just going to read a little bit of this. Is an excellent long article. And I'm going to use the F word here because it's right here in the mainstream media. So, it has come to this. Last year, a researcher presented a paper on climate change at the American Geophysical Union's meeting entitled, "Is Earth Fucked?" And you know my answer to that, which advocated, quote, environmental direct action, resistance taken from outside the dominant culture, as in protests, blockades, and sabotage by indigenous peoples, workers, anarchists, and other activist groups. I had a rant when this paper came out. Hallelujah, whatever geophysicist advocating anarchy and sabotage. deep green resistance. These scientists who get it, they understand how fucked this planet is. Hallelujah. Scientists calling for sabotage and here is only last week a conference of climate scientists in London explored the theme of radical emissions reduction after noting that, quote, nothing that we, meaning climatologists, nothing that we have said or done to date about climate change has made any detectable dip whatsoever. There you go. That sums up what these climate scientists summing up, trying to get through to this goddamn planet. Here is Naomi Klein, good old Naomi, weighing in, I guess, just in the past few days, saying, quote, an agenda. She says that what the climate change struggle needs right now is, quote, an agenda capable of delivering radical emissions reductions. And it will only advance if accompanied by a radical movement. Oh, here's a fed up with slow, or in some case backwards, progress on climate change. Environmental advocates are now mulling desperate measures, and emerging at the head of the pack is arguably the world's most prominent climate scientist, James Hansen, a former NASA researcher turned activist. Now, of course, one of James Hansen's, it doesn't mention it in this story, let's not forget that one of this planet's most radical anti-fossil fuel activist is claiming that we need more nuclear power on this planet. There's some anarchy. There's some sabotage and anarchy for you. Anyway, guys, this is a long, breaks it all down. Here is why emissions need to start falling now. Here is why revolution is now the only way. Hansen and his associates admonish the environmental community for doing the same things over and over again, advocating for renewable energy, recycling, and hybrid cars, and expecting different results. The change that is produced in this way is much, much too slow, they say. Their study concludes with what can only be characterized as a call to arms, a global challenge akin to the anti-slavery and civil rights movements, begging the world's young people to disrupt their governments and demand immediate action on climate change. In short, we're talking about a revolution, or in the words of the report, a human tipping point. So it's up to the young folks, oh yeah, to save the planet. Oh boy. Anyway, excellent article. Reading about this great revolution by the young folks to save the planet. I've got two more here. Oh shit, it's unable to connect to the internet. Oh god, I guess I lost it. Did I? So anyway, what the story was that the universe just grabbed for me was this latest website called Reddit, R-E-D-T-I-T, just blocking out climate change deniers. That they're just I'm sorry the story's not here. There were some good quotes by the editor at Reddit who made the decision, and it's just simply that they're sick and tired of hearing from these climate change deniers. They're just sick and tired of it, of listening to their unadulterated horseshit. And you know, and what he was talking about in here was not just these, quote, trolls coming on with all their filthy words and personal attacks, which they don't allow anyway. What it was doing, he goes, it wasn't so much the trolls who had already been kicked off. It was the morons, the unadulterated morons swallowing this shit from all of these right-wing funded, people like the Koch brothers. I could have done a whole nother article here, which I didn't have time to get into. Spewing out this unadulterated horseshit. These people whose lives depend, whose millions depend on fossil fuels, ramping up their campaign of horseshit, and these people actually buying it. Even nice folks that they're just hopeless. They're hopeless. Their heads are stuck so far up their asses that just shut up. Shut the hell up. We don't need to hear your flat earth society, the moon is made of green cheese anymore. Guys, the science is in. As that paper said, as long as I've used the F word, well, I'm going to use it again. The science is in. We are fucked. And anybody, all I can say about these guys is these goddamn climate change deniers with these mountains of scientific evidence. They're the people, back there when back there in Pompeii, when that volcano, is it Vesuvius or Etna? I can't remember. You know, the ones with their teacups up to their lips, with this surprised look on their face, as their bodies were buried under 10 feet of ash. They are the modern equivalent of those idiots. There's going to be a certain number of people that just will never get it. Anyway, anywho's, let me wrap up this rant with this one from TakePart.com. Keeping it simple. Scientist uses haiku to explain climate change. So anybody who doesn't want to listen to all of these thousands and thousands of climate scientists, here is this is a climate scientist, Greg Johnson of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, summing up climate change in 19 haikus that refine the latest Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report into key findings, into 19 digestible nuggets of poetry. And I will share, to close out this week's Climate Change Meltdown Roundup, these 3 haikus. Now, they're not perfect haikus if you really want to split hairs. But hey, he's a climate scientist, not a poet. Okay. Summing up climate change in 3 haikus. Number 1, big, fast carbon surge. Ice melts, oceans heat and rise, air warms by decades. Number 2, we burn more carbon. Air warms for decades, but seas rise for millennia. And the final one, 40 years from now, children will live in a world shaped by our choices. We will see if children live in a world shaped by our choices or die in the burning lake of fire that we are leaving as our legacy to our children and grandchildren as we hand them their goddamn little iPhones, as Santa hands them their iPhones on Christmas morning to put 154 pounds of CO2 in the air. And with that, I will wrap up the December 25th, 2013 Climate Change Meltdown Roundup on this ugly, depressing winter day on the planet, and head off to a pickin' party. Bye, guys.